All right.
Are we live?
Yeah, we are. It's about a minute before sort of scheduled go live time, so
Done.
we can chit chat.
Yep.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
We got a great workshop here today.
We do.
Yeah, we're going to help people assess their digital experience. What do you think of that?
Yep.
Yeah.
This is where everything starts. So I believe organizations should be doing this more often than they actually do, and I'm always amazed when I hear, "Yeah, we don't do this."
Or they sort of think that they do, right? Like
They think that they do.
Right,
Yes.
right.
But they roll it into a
Right.
much larger strategy, and it just gets overshot.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm hoping what people take away when they watch this is just one little nugget that they can use to get a little bit better at it. So
Absolutely.
we don't even advocate for like, do it exactly this way, but here, and we don't even do it exactly this way. There are some things and some thinking here that we hope to share. Right?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, shall we get going?
Yeah.
All right.
Music first.
Oh, right. How did you like that track?
It's a good track.
Do you know what it's called?
Feeding the
the Ducks.
That was hard for me to say.
How do I got to turn that off.
Yeah.
Pause.
Pause and then go down to the little.
We just got a comment that our background music is too loud.
It's a little loud.
All right.
And we can turn off our sound as well.
Down here. All right.
Just
So it's just boink.
yeah, there we go.
Good.
All right. Ready?
Oh, we're going here.
Hi.
So let's bring up the deck here.
There we go.
All right, but I think we need to actually show it to everybody else that's hanging out with us here today.
Correct.
So we're going to do the Digital Experience Workshop series, the first one of the year. We have a whole bunch of these that we do, and we do one a month.
Yeah.
And what we're going to be talking about today is how to assess your digital experience. The cool thing about this one is that we are going to touch on some thinking and some concepts that we are then going to go into way more detail about every month for the rest of the year.
That's we'll call it our yearly goal, is to do a workshop a month and go into the.
Like we already have them scheduled. They're already on the calendar.
They're already there.
So follow along and pick the ones that, come to them all, but pick the ones that you think are going to be more relevant to your business, and hopefully you can help make some of those decisions by what we talk about today.
Done.
So we're going to get into that in a minute. First of all, you want to say hi formally?
Hi.
Formally. And I'm Scott. Let us know if there's anything we can help you with in your digital experience. We are from Flywheel. We do digital design. We have a development team. We have a content team. And we're very curious. So we'd love to ask questions and figure out what it is that makes your business tick, and bring our services to bear in that regard. That's all we'll say about that. So we want to get some engagement going on LinkedIn. There is some reaction buttons there right below. So we want to know from everybody that's here, do you think you've got a handle on all the necessary components that go into a digital experience? Respond accordingly. Stephen, how do you think most people do at the overall health of their digital experience?
I think a lot of people should be saying they plead the fifth.
Yeah.
I honestly, because of it, digital experience means something different for everyone. So it's hard. That's what I think people should do. But I think you're going to get a lot of people saying we're getting there.
Yeah.
Or they think they've got a bigger handle on it.
Well, I agree with you that there's a lot that people can be doing better here. But I also know that everybody who's tuning in is an active participant in a digital experience and has definitely got a lot of strength behind them. So I'll go with, signs are pointing to yes. I don't think anybody's going to say they're crushing it, but let's see how it pans out. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that you can get to the tool that we're going to be talking about today. So I'll put it in the chat here as well. It's at flyw.co/dx-assessment-tool. That will give you the spreadsheet that we're going to get into in a few minutes. But I want you to go and download that right now so that you can kind of look at it and reference it and keep in mind a little bit more context as we go through what we're going to talk about today. All right. So now that you all had a chance to grab that tool, let's get into it. Assessing your digital experience. So why? Why do you want to do this?
Ask any one of those questions. Why, where, what? In terms of why?
But like, why do we want to make sure that people can do this properly? That's the question I'm asking here. Not why do you want to do it? I know I asked that question, but I really meant to say, why are we here to give this information out?
We are here to give this information out because we help customers every single day with the question of why.
Yeah.
Without fail. And I think what we do best is we ask the right questions to the customers to get to that answer and to the question of why.
So
like, why should they
exactly
do it? What, why do you want to expand your digital experience? All of those questions, I think that's why we are here today.
And I think that you were kind of saying that a lot of people probably want to plead the fifth on how well they're doing here. I think that really what it comes down to is that people just kind of forget what they should be thinking about. They get busy in their day-to-day and they get into a routine where they look at the same metrics, they look at the same priorities that they looked at last month, and they get to the end of the year and they go, oh, I should have done a better job at my SEO or something like that.
Yep.
So here we are to say, make for yourself the list of things that you don't want to forget about, neglect, or get distracted or get pulled away from because you get distracted by some priority halfway through the year. So we are here hopefully to provide everybody that's listening, watching, with a little bit more focus, clarity, and a path that you can leverage for the rest of the year. Okay. All right, everybody, we're going to commit to that together because I'm saying this mostly for myself. We're gonna run such a tight campaign for Flywheel this year. It's going to be great. Let's get into it. The approach that we are advocating for here. I am deliberately avoiding the criteria so far. So I haven't gone in to talk about what you should be doing because I think that is the last thing you should be doing.
I would agree because I think, like we have up here, context matters.
Yeah.
Context is the most important piece, and context is what, as a business, you should be focused in on first. Like, context could be who needs to be in the room.
Yeah.
Who are the people that need to be helping with digital experience? Where does that even begin before you can even talk about the strategy for digital experience? What's the business side? What's the business case for everything?
And I think what happens is you show up for something like this. We talk about a few things and you write them all down and go, yeah, I'm going to do all that.
Yeah.
And that's not the right context. I think you need to figure out for yourself what matters.
Yes.
Then you can look at the criteria, you can set some priorities, and then you can get into the details of the assessment.
Yeah, especially for organizations. If we're just talking like a small shop, then there's only one or two people. But once you start getting into a large or enterprise conversation, like think about all the business units that want to be able to mandate a website or digital, any digital experience points that are part of that business. And the one I always like to use in terms of context, everybody wants their stuff on the front homepage.
Yes.
It is amazing. And I'm like, have the conversation with each one of those business units in terms of context.
So we did and in fact, our workshop to sort of close out the year, I can't remember if it was December or November, is we talked about search.
Yes.
And we'll do the workshop again later this year. But I find that this hits every single project. I want to make sure that my site can be found on search engines.
Yeah.
And that is a good, admirable goal. That sounds nice. That sounds, in one sentence, conceptually simple. Do you know what you need to do in order for your site to be anywhere of significance within a search result? Do you know?
I know it takes
It's
a
a
lot,
lot of work.
of work, more than what most organizations are even willing to spend on resources and time and money.
So it's really easy to say, quite simply, oh yeah, we want a good search presence. You need to make sure that you're only saying that if you know that it matters.
Yeah.
Of course, it could matter. Of course, it could make a difference. But is it something that is having an impact on your business right now? Do you already get most of your search results, or sorry, most of your traffic from search results? Maybe you are a photographer and you are very local, and that is the keyword phrase that works for you. But don't try and take on all photographers in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to know who you're trying to communicate with. You have to know how they're going to find you and how you're going to communicate with them. And so I think there's a lot of context you have to put around what are you doing today? What's working? How does the business function? And then you can say, okay, now with that in place, how do we want to evolve, and what are the resources at my disposal?
And the resource one is always a catch-22 because it's very finite. Like
Right.
you only have so much. So it almost comes down to you have to pick and choose.
Yeah. Okay, so don't do any of this without taking that deliberate moment, sitting down, pen, paper, quiet spot. Wait a minute. Why am I doing this? Why do I even have a website? It's a very powerful question. And then from there, you can set up the priorities. So here we're showing our top level criteria for the first time in this workshop. If you've taken a sneak peek at the tool that we provided the download link for, you can see this as well. These are just some sort of buckets, some areas to say, give this some thought. The first thing to do before you even question whether or not this is a healthy element of your digital experience is to prioritize this criteria.
I like the first one. Who cares?
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of digital governance and governance when we're talking about who should be in that room. But when you say who cares, like who even should be part of that project?
Right.
Right. I think that's my number one. Whenever we're dealing with a customer, who needs to be part of this, and finding out later, we've all had these projects where later on, oh, I don't like this.
Right.
And why didn't we know that person was needed?
Right.
Right. I like that being the first priority.
And so, I mean, I think another example is design and brand expression.
Correct.
So, first of all, good design makes a huge difference.
Yes.
Even in a B2B scenario, even in an app or a scenario that's only used by a few staff, it can make that job more enjoyable, easier to do, more of a delight for that particular person, and the sort of the case continues. But there's a big difference between how far you need to lean in to customizing that and curating that and working with a template or working with a graphic designer to get it dialed into the point that you need it to. So I would say that this can go in either way. If you're working on a digital experience it's a back-end experience, it's a portal, it's a tool, you might easily be fall into the trap of neglecting this.
Yes.
And so this is a way to say, hey, wait a minute, that actually does need to be a deliberate focus for me. I need to make sure that my brand expression is important, is given consideration. On the flip side, it's very easy to run away with this.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we get the idea. Make sure before you even think about how well you're doing each of these criteria, you give some weighting to whether or not these even matter for you. And please make up more criteria. These are buckets. These are areas of thought and consideration. So what else might be there? It comes down to evaluating return on investment. If I go ahead and decide to improve various aspects of my digital experience, is it going to have a positive benefit?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't go and treat all of these with equal weighting and work on them equally, because you're going to put effort in that's not going to give you the right result.
Yeah, and let's be honest, the evaluations that we have are thousands and thousands of points, and then we scale back because when we're working with customers. So what we're giving you is, making it simple. You've done a good job, by the way.
I simplified it.
You simplified
we have
it.
a much more complex matrix than what we've shared.
You don't want to overdo it for everyone.
And so then you get into the actual assessment. Then you get to look at each criteria, and you might skip some that are a low priority, but try and go through it. But I'm also advocating in this process not to be overly scientific about it.
Yes.
You're just kind of going for a thumbs up, thumbs down. But I mean, there's another scenario here where you might want a larger scale so that you don't just kind of pick from 3 binary options. You get the idea. Be thoughtful. Don't just kind of give yourself a medium grade across the board, because that's not helping. What are the best things that you do? Could they be better? Yes. Everything can always be better. But in relation to how you're doing, where your efforts are going, are you doing this well? Give yourself some good scores. Give yourself recognition for what are the areas and aspects, because it's all relative to itself. It's relative to the market, and it's relative to your competitors as well. But within my own capacity to build my digital experience for my business, for my audience, for the why, what am I doing well? What am I not doing well? What am I doing kind of so-so? Give each criteria a score on that and move on, because you're looking at the macro level here.
Yeah. And it really depends on how you want to score it. Like, we've given you that scoring methodology, but change it. If you're the one who's in charge of that digital assessment, change it to what makes sense to you, because you're ultimately going to be the one that's going to these meetings and explaining all of this.
Right. Okay, so that's kind of the setup, and we've spent about half of our time kind of getting to this point. So now we're going to go back to the tool and the spreadsheet, the exercise, if I will. Do you get to pick? Do you want to pretend that we are a business that runs sports tournaments, or a business that sends installers into the house to put telecommunications, a new phone line, internet, or something like that?
I wanted to pick sports tournament.
Great. All right.
Let's go.
So we are going to flip over here to our tool now, to our spreadsheet, and we're going to kind of pretend that we are a business that is trying to get people to sign up for sports tournaments. Yeah. Okay. What sport?
Sure. Basketball.
How did I know? Okay. So basketball. All right. So are we doing kids or adults or
adults?
Adults. Okay. So we're doing adult. See what I did there? Right. Already kind of drilling in on who, where, why, what is the priority. So on this sheet, to begin with, the first tab that we've got is to help you think about those priorities. Each one of these criteria, these are like criteria categories, has a corresponding tab along the bottom. You can add as many more as you want. But for such a scenario, would you think that design and brand expression is a high priority, medium priority, or low priority, Stephen?
Medium for somebody signing up, because they want to get the information faster than they care about the
user experience.
High.
Yeah.
That's
content strategy.
High. Because you want the information.
Your ability to publish that content, manage that content.
I'll put medium.
Medium. Right. Reporting, measurement, analytics.
Medium.
Okay.
High. Because you got to find it.
All right. Tools, innovation.
Medium, because we're a little bit. Yeah, you could even put that low.
Yeah. And regulatory.
Medium.
Nope. Low.
You're gonna put it low.
I don't want to get into.
Okay. Done,
I'm running a basketball tournament, whether or not I am. Yeah. Okay. So right away, you can see what this has done for us, right? Yep. It's given us some things to think about, some ways to focus on how this is all gonna play out. So let's pick design and branding experience. Okay. So I've got some criteria already filled out here.
Yeah.
The idea is to just make some notes for yourself and give yourself an assessment in these areas or others. So I would first look at this and say, what do I need to be thinking about for my own design and brand expression? For a lot of people, this is important, and you'll see the priorities kind of pull through from that first sheet. So maybe I don't want to think about this one as much as I need to think about what are the aspects of my user experience that I need to really make sure that we are paying attention to. So we've kind of given you some thought starters on each one of these tabs, and I'll go through them so that you can so we can sort of share our thinking. On the design tab, on the design front, would you agree with these criteria? Which ones do you think are sort of worth considering more, or is there anything missing?
In context of the sport tournament,
Yeah,
or in
yeah.
terms of the sport tournament, brand template for sure, because they're going to want to be able to just easily.
Have we got a good design system? Can we crank out new events easily? And so what you're doing is you're assessing how well you are currently doing at that right now. So right now, do we have some good templates, or is this holding us back?
Yeah, because you want to be able to do it quickly. I would say pages, the same thing, and then social media is obviously the main.
I might suggest that even articles don't. Well, they may not even belong on this list for this kind of scenario. Are we writing articles?
Depends
about
on where
basketball
SEO is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's not have that on there. Are we designing any? I don't think we have any resources, so I'm going to pull that off of there.
Those would be the top
ones.
Yeah,
and you know what I might add in here? It kind of falls under social media, but I would say my email marketing templates.
Yes, there you go.
So that's another item that I would end into this. So when we're thinking about design, it's important to have brand guidelines, to start from that perspective, to know if we are putting something out there that's consistent with the rest of our brand. You'd be surprised how valuable the existence of good brand guidelines are. Are there any other criteria here that you think are missing, or we should add?
Not for that. I think keep it simple. And
so
there you go.
On the user experience, do you want to maybe explain in your words what you're evaluating here?
So for the user experience, in my perspective, the first thing I'm trying to do is the information clarity. You've got to hear navigation consistency, but how quickly I can get to the information I need.
How well is it organized?
And if you have two different journeys that you know of, like if we're thinking like for sports, there are members who are already there that probably need their schedule, and there are people who are signing up.
Right.
Make those two very clear, very distinct in the navigation. Make that very easy to find. And that's how I look at user experience. I want those two journeys. If we're taking the sports analogy, I want those two journeys to be very clear.
So my question is, or I think a common challenge when you're evaluating this is, how do you know? How do you know if your information is organized properly, if it's easy to find, if it's 3 clicks away, or whatever the rule is you want to try and follow? How can you evaluate user experience effectively?
There are tools that help.
Shall we say Google Analytics?
Google Analytics is one. Google Analytics is the top. I use other tools such as Hotjar, Screaming Frog. There are tools basically, and then survey tools as well, surveying your own customers consistently, which you can do with Hotjar, Screaming Frog, and just asking the question. And feedback is 100% in these.
Actually talking to your users, to your audience. Yeah. And I put focus groups on here. Are you doing that well? If it's something that you need in order to provide consistent feedback and input in the health of your user experience, right? So again, we're trying to help you keep a healthy experience. Well, if you do a focus group once when you're building the project to begin with, and that's it, it was healthy at that moment, but have you got a structure and a process in place to continually improve that, validate that, and get good feedback? I was going to mention, we also are fans of the Sitefinity platform and have used Sitefinity Insight as another tool in this capacity.
Absolutely.
In the chat, we've already got somebody asking about ChatGPT and whether or not that is something that we would recommend incorporating. I'm gonna get to that one when we get to tools and innovation.
Okay.
I think we could probably spend the whole half hour talking just about that.
That we'd have to do a separate one because I have answers to that question.
So content, I've got content strategy and content management on 2 separate tabs here. So let me take a stab at explaining the difference here, and then you can tell me what you think.
Okay.
Content strategy and content management are different activities. content strategy means that you've thought about how and what you're going to communicate and where it's going to fit in your overall business priorities for the year. You know who you're going to talk to, how you're going to talk to them, when you're going to talk to them. And so you've started kind of a top-down approach and you've got the infrastructure in place. You can say to your boss or yourself, here's what my year, quarter, month, week is going to look like. So many clients just kind of go month to month on this. And you can
establish KPIs.
Right. And so it doesn't prevent you from responding in the moment to a priority or a change that comes at you, but putting that strategy in place first, make sure that you can then move into execution. And executing needs some deliberate consideration given to it as well. So this is where the work plan is really kind of the output of the strategy. And do I have the resources that I need in order to deliver against my strategy? Because you need to show this to your boss or yourself or be deliberate about it as well. Hold on a second. If my strategy is all about video, have I got the time, the camera, the editing, the platform to publish it?
And do the resources you have available understand the strategy, and can they execute on the content management plan that you provide to anyone who enters the organization? Because that ends up being how many customers where you've got the nice plan in the beginning, oh, we've rehired or we've hired 20 extra people, and then that plan goes out the door because they didn't follow the strategy. Like, that needs to happen first, that strategy.
And then in this sort of more tactical implementation, I've also added things like translation and sort of freshness review. It's making sure that you don't just kind of, story, we're running a campaign, or Stephen and I spent basically 48 hours in this room this week just recording videos for a campaign that we're getting organized. And then we went to publish it on our own website, and I was embarrassed about some of the old stuff that I found in there. And, case in point, you have to make sure that you're keeping it. Like, is it doing any damage? Probably no, not really. But does it kind of show poorly on your entire story that you're putting so much time and effort into carefully curating? Yes. So don't just set it and forget it. Make sure you are also taking some time to review what you've done before and keeping up with how fresh and current and relevant that content is.
And when you see content management, you can add the word plan. Have a schedule for content.
Yeah, I mean, that should be established, I guess. There's early put whether you put it in strategy or management, it's in here. Yeah. Okay. So then I think you've put a lot of time into thinking about this, but here we are once a year kind of going, are we thinking about the right things? You can't manage what you're not measuring, is the old cliche.
Yeah.
It's also, I think, easy to get kind of carried away with this. I thought when you go, okay, let me start again. When you go into an analytics platform, when you log into Google Analytics, there's a bajillion data points in there.
Yeah. Data Studio is a nightmare for people who don't use it.
And you can get lost in there.
Yep.
And you can get excited by all of that. And you can think that this is fun and interesting. And then you pop up 2 hours later and you go like, whoa, I have no story to tell here. So when you're doing reporting, you can certainly set some time aside for that kind of exploration of what data is in here. But what's important to the business? What do I need to know on a regular basis so that you're focused on that? Now, we have some people on our team that help us with this, that helps make sure that I'm asking somebody else to present the data to the rest of our team who looks at this on a weekly and monthly basis. I don't know if that person spends more time looking for sort of diamonds in the rough, probably sometimes, but being very strict about what data points do we care about helps you with that decision-making and priority process.
This goes all the way back from almost the beginning slide. The entire reason of why, which stakeholders are involved, what KPIs are you even measuring? when you're doing analytics, you may have KPIs you want to see monthly,
right,
bi-monthly, quarterly, and yearly, and making sure that you understand which ones you want to see instead of just getting data overload, which I see a lot of the times. Like, and the data is not even good, right? They'll get data. Oh, I got this many impressions. So what does that matter? Right? Like, we just seeing the data based on the KPIs, based on the stakeholders who are involved, so they know they have input on that, gets you to the end of this.
Yeah. So we've got a few other tabs, and we could probably spend another half an hour going into depth on each one, but we've got a tab for search. And by this, we do talk about both SEO, but also your on-site search.
Yep.
Tools and innovation. I said we would talk about Chat GPT, which we will. But how are you leveraging automation, whether that's marketing and sales automation tools, AI, other alerts and notifications, integrations with other systems? How are you streamlining the way that your data moves around your environment? And regulatory, I think when you think about this, you think about accessibility and GDPR, but don't forget, in certain industries, there are specific requirements that aren't mandated by the government, but they are required by payment providers and by
medical,
finance, exactly.
Insurance.
So what kind of other disclosures, and are they up to date, and when was the last time they got looked at? They probably don't need as much attention on a regular basis, but you need a process for that. So there you go. With all of that, hopefully you've got some pointers for improving the health of your digital experience.
And if you have any other questions, call us.
All right.
Connect with us.
Well, thanks. We're going to go into overtime. We're going to keep talking, but if you got to go, we appreciate you tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day. Tell all your friends. It's been a pleasure. All right, Stephen. So here we go. Moment. Let's go back to just looking at each other. There we go.
Okay.
So we had two questions come in as we were doing that. We had one was about ChatGPT, and are we recommending to use ChatGPT and integrate that into our digital experiences? I will give you 90 seconds. Go.
No, it's not live.
That was 5 seconds.
So it's a great tool.
I disagree, by the way. Keep going.
It's a great tool, but you have to understand it is not using live data. It's not allowed to use live data. Look at OpenAI's policies. So there's a lot of things you can use it for. You can create some interesting content, create some interesting experiences. But at the end of the day, using it for anything significant, it is using old data. It's not allowed that. And I won't go into the specifics, but if you want them, I can give those to you.
Completely disagree. 100,000,000%. So you're not wrong. It's using old data. I think it's up to like 2021 or something.
Yeah. The beginning of 2020.
So I used it this month to help me write a blog post. And it did not write the blog post for me. I probably could have done that if I had wanted to spend enough time with it. But it came back with some thought starters. So I was sitting there kind of paralyzed by, how am I going to go at this topic? And you know what it did in 20 seconds? It gave me a perfect outline for that blog post. I'm like, yes, here is the framework and the structure that I can follow. I'm now going to take this, make it my own, but it just unblocked me from that moment.
Okay.
I also used it. I just got off another call where we were talking about how is it going to be able to improve the life of a sales professional.
Okay.
So when you are in a sales situation, it will help you get context for the conversation that you're about to have.
Okay. Interesting.
So
explain.
So if you are having a conversation with somebody, it's not going to give you up to the minute information about a prospect. But if you need to know more about the way that bonds are traded because you're about to meet with a financial service company, guess what it will do? It will explain it to you very clearly in a way that you can then interrogate a little bit further and come away going, okay, I get it now. Now, could you Google that and click some websites and read some articles and figure it out too? Yes, but it would take you way longer. So that's how I think you should include it in your digital strategy. I don't mean embed it on your website tomorrow.
But yeah.
The second thing I did is when I was done the blog post, I went over to DALL-E, which is the image generation AI from the same company that makes ChatGPT, OpenAI, and I described a photo that I wanted, and guess what it did?
It created
a photo that I went and wow, perfect, bang, done. So now there's some gray area there, and I'm not actually careful by going and doing that. I'm not sure what kind of copyright. I don't think anybody's figured that out.
There are no copyright laws for anything AI.
Well, except the AI might be emulating another artist's style, and there might be. So I'm not sure what that's. And you're not a lawyer either, so just take it with a grain of salt. But
yes, please.
But there are some very powerful tools out there that you can use to absolutely accelerate your digital experience. And ChatGPT, in my opinion, is one of them. Have I convinced you?
For what you're using it for, yes. I think for like a broader digital, how is it going to help my digital experience? I think it helps individuals.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to help strategically any real digital experience.
Will that change by December 2023?
It will change. Not with ChatGPT, and how much I can say. Something else will change by the mid of 2024.
Right. Oh, so I think it'll happen this year. No. I think this will become. There'll be ways to incorporate this into our digital experiences more than what we've just been talking about by the end of this year. That's my prediction. So I think this is something you absolutely need to be paying attention to. You need to be experimenting with. You need to be fiddling around with right now today so that when these tools are readily available, end of 2023, middle of 2024, who knows? Listen, whether it's 12 or 18 months, it is on our doorstep.
Yes.
So
pay attention to Google and what they're about to do. That's all I'll say.
Okay. Switching topics.
Yes.
Back to content. We had a question about whether or not you should clean out your old content. Do you delete it, remove it from your website?
You need to go through. So I have 3 rules for this. 1, I look at if SEO is a priority for your business. I always look how much SEO strength is on any of the content you're doing.
Yep.
Number 1. Number 2, I look at archiving.
Yep.
Like why do we need to delete? Outside of the fact, is it just adding to server problems?
Sure.
Right? If it's super old and the content wasn't done, correctly in the back end. And then the third is update the content. So say you have a list, hey, here's 10 lists, 10 things you do. Update it instead of losing it. And it really only differentiates if it's just content, like you say, it's policies are outdated. That kind of stuff is fine. But if you can refresh really good content because you spent the time to build the content, why delete it?
Okay, good point. So if SEO, I would suggest that even if SEO is not a high priority for you and you have content on your website that isn't factually incorrect, there's no harm in leaving it there.
No.
And probably some benefit.
Yes.
And if SEO is a high priority part of your strategy, then the more content, the better. Caveat, it has to be organized. It has to be aggregated in a thoughtful, smart, intuitive manner so that it can be indexed by categories, by topics as well.
That's a good point. So if you
thank you.
So I've worked on websites where like there's just a balloon of content and like 10 clicks to get into anything. And you're right, the taxonomy being used through archiving would be helpful.
You have to remember, I love throwing this stat out. When you look at the traffic for your website, your homepage will almost always be the most popular page.
Yes.
But the aggregate of all your hits and all your traffic on all your other pages will far outweigh the homepage.
Yes.
What that means is all the other pages are way more important than the homepage. when taken in aggregate. And people do not read websites like books. They don't start at the beginning and then flip through them. They do a search, they get pointed at a certain resource, they come in anywhere. And so your content will help make sure that there's an entry point for everybody's little nuance. And I'll just come back to what you said about archiving. Let's just clarify what that means. It doesn't mean it comes down.
No.
It stays up, but it gets flagged. It gets tagged in a way that's very visible to the user that, hey, this is an old piece of content. You may not take from it what you were hoping. It's here for whatever benefit you can take from it. It helped you find us. There's ways of, exploring more about that category, but it is being very transparent about the fact that we're putting up something that may not be current anymore.
Correct.
And then to your point, if it was a valuable piece of content, update it.
Yeah, and date it. Put an author on it. Now, if you don't understand that from a Google perspective, I suggest start reading because it's important.
There you go. We got through all of our questions. This was fun.
Awesome.
We rolled over, which was awesome. I hope everybody that stuck around enjoys the rest of their day. And flywheelstrategic.com/digital experience workshops, digital-experience-workshops. You can get the rest of the calendar there. I'm sure if you're following us, you'll get these links on LinkedIn as well. See you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.